Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live stream of version 5.0 for what's new in the JavaScript Maps SDK. And here we have our great teammates. We will share our amazing updates in the version 5.0 with you. Please drop in where you are joining the live stream from in the chat, and we will keep the conversation going and get you engaged. So first, let's have a quick round of introduction. I am Yixuan Hu Emily. I'm product manager for the JavaScript Maps SDK, and also works on location platform open source libraries. And here, so I'm joining from New Jersey, the side that's closer to Philly. It's a beautiful day, but it's getting a little bit hotter and hotter, closer to summer than spring now. And yeah, and then I'll pass it to Meet.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, my name is Meet Merchant, and I'm a software engineer on the ArcGIS Online team. I work on the AI components for JavaScript SDK, and I'm joining from the Redlands office. So I'll pass it to Jose.
Thanks, Meet. I'm Jose Bañuelos, product engineer, and work on the editing side of the Maps SDK, and I'm joining from Esri campus in Redlands, California. I will pass it to Anne.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose. Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Fitz. I'm a product engineer. I focus mostly on the map components and also some visualization things like symbology. I am joining today from the Redlands office in the Esri office in Redlands. Normally, I'm based in New York City. I'll pass it to David.
Hello, everybody from my side. I'm David, software engineer, also in the Maps SDK team, and I'm working on the 3D site in Zurich, where we have the Web 3D team. And there I'm concerned with everything around analysis, editing, feature processing, also symbology, all these things, everything graphical and 3D cartography is the stuff I like to work on. And our weather is mixed. April, we had really beautiful weather in the recent days, but now it's a bit rainy. But it's got to be good. All right, I pass it on to Heather.
Thanks, David. I'm Heather Gonzago. I am a product engineer with the JavaScript SDK team. I work closely with Jose with the editing and the editing components, also feature table as well. And I am joining you from my home in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm passing it back to Emily.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We see the audience are joining us from around the world. We have people in lots of states in the U.S., like friends from Washington, from Oregon, Iowa. Also, we have friends from Denmark, from India. Welcome, welcome. So first, we will start our live stream with a exciting AI section. We will start with Meet.
Okay, thanks, Emily. I'll share my screen now. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So we are excited to announce the release of AI components in the JavaScript SDK. The AI components in the JavaScript SDK help you to build agentic web mapping applications that enable end users to explore web maps using natural language queries. For example, this application loads a web map visualizing more than 900,000 noise complaints reported in New York City for the year 2025. This app includes an assistant component which provides a chat interface for interacting with client-side agents. The SDK provides an agent for data exploration and one for navigation. So I'm just going to go right ahead and interact with these agents to explore this web map. First, I'll ask the map to list the type of complaints and along with their counts. So the assistant component identifies this question as something that the data exploration agent can answer. So it routes the request to that agent, which then invokes a statistic query tool to return the answer. There we go. So this is awesome, but helicopter complaints strikes me as a category that I would like to explore further. So I'll ask the data exploration agent to filter these complaints in the map. So we'll wait for the assistant to first query and filter out just the helicopter complaints, and then use feature effects to show just the helicopter complaints on the map. While we wait for that, as a developer, I wanted to mention that we have an option to display a log um, for end user transparency. So here we can see that the intent was detected for the data exploration agent, and then it ran through some steps. It called some tools, made some queries, and then returned the answer back to us. So this query worked, and it returned some 22,000 complaint records. But on the map, what I see here appears to be some sort of a geographic pattern. So I'll ask the map for the streets where the most noise complaints originate from. Let's see if we can find a pattern or a street where a lot of helicopter complaints originate from. I do want to mention that the agents and the tools that they invoke all run in the browser, allowing us to leverage the client-side capabilities of the core JavaScript SDK to modify the map state. Great. So the agent came back with a list of streets. So now I'll ask to navigate to the top option, West 70th Street. Now the assistant recognizes this request as a map navigation question. So it routes my question to the navigation agent, which will then process and fulfill the request. In this case, I am asking the navigation agent to go to an address. So it geocodes this, but the navigation agent also has access to tools for navigating to a web map or a set of features, or even something like zoom in, zoom out. Awesome. So we are on the navigated address. I can see that the helicopter noise complaints are also prevalent on other streets in this neighborhood. Since the assistant component is also aware of the client state, I can ask the number of helicopter noise complaints in my current view, not just those on 70th Street. So since our client-side query engine has all the data it needs, the data exploration agent makes a client-side query to give a number back to me, which will reflect the number of helicopter noise complaints in my view. So it came back with 7,059, which seems accurate. Okay, awesome. Now let's take a look at the code to build this app. So here I have a code pen with the code that brings up this demo app that I showed. And all I did was I took a pre-configured web map and loaded it by ID in the ArcGIS Map component. Now to make this web app agentic, all I had to do was add the assistant component and register the agents that I would like to include. In this case, the navigation agent and data exploration agent. And that's it. All that capability in just about 50 lines of code. So we just explored examples of agents that we provide out of the box by the JavaScript SDK, but we also provide the ability for you to create custom agents to register to the assistant component. So let's take a look at this example. This app loads the same data, but with a slightly different view. Now I'm looking at noise complaint reports that are still open or under review. So this app could be for a dispatcher or for someone who logs or triages complaints. And I have created a custom agent that logs new complaints. So first I'll navigate to Madison Square Garden. And let's say there is a neighbor who has a problem with noise outside the arena. So that the person will navigate to the location that they want to report the complaint from. And then they can just type something like, there is a large group of people and please assist me. So this time we can see that the custom agent for reporting complaints will now get invoked. And yeah, this is the custom agent. And while we wait for that, I just wanted to point you to the documentation. The links will be sent in the chat, but this is where you can see documentation for creating a custom agent, and we also have custom agent samples on the doc page. All right. So since this agent modifies my data, I want the agent to interrupt its execution to give the employee the opportunity to confirm whether the report drawn up by the agent is satisfactory. In this case, it prepared the following report with the problem, the status, and additional details. So I confirm that I do want the report to be filed, and the agent adds the feature to my layer and displays it in the map. So in this case, I can see that the report was filed, and this is the feature that was added. Cool. So the agent, let's look at the code. So the agent that I created was on the client using LangGraph. It's a library by LangChain. And what I do is, as part of the graph, I create a few nodes. And the first thing I do is I generate a prompt that instructs the agents what parameters to fill out. And then after defining all my nodes, this is where I define my graph and I export my agent configuration. Then I register it to my assistant component following the same pattern used for out-of-the-box agents. So we just explored how to use the out-of-box agent and custom agents to build an agentic web mapping application. The documentation for the assistant component and the agents I just demonstrated are all available on the AI components package in the JavaScript SDK. And you can check out the documentation for more info. I'm excited to see the experiences you build with these components, and I encourage you to send us feedback throughout the beta period using Esri community and Esri support channels. Thank you. Back to Emily.
Thank you, Mi. Excellent presentation. We have a few questions from our audience. So the first question is from KW Moral. Can the custom agents be on another platform with access to the same data?
By another platform, if you mean ArcGIS Enterprise, right now we don't have support for Enterprise, but it will be coming end of this year or by next year.
Okay, great. Second question is, will AI components consume credits?
Right now we are in beta, so for now they don't, but as we move to general availability, they will consume credits, but we'll be transparent about that.
Awesome. That's great. There's two more questions. First is what LLM do we use in our AI components?
Yeah, so for the out-of-the-box agents, we used Azure OpenAI models, GPT 5.2 and 5.2 mini. But for custom agents, you can choose to use the ones we export or your own LLMs.
Awesome. Great. And the last question here is, where can we host custom agents?
Once you create a custom agent, you can just register it to the assistant component exported by the JavaScript SDK. And when you include that component in your code, your custom agent will be a part of your web app.
Got it. So it doesn't really matter where they're hosted as long as they register with our component, we can work on it. Is that right?
Yeah, for now you need to build your custom agents using LangChain. We are looking at supporting other frameworks as well, but you don't have to host your custom agents anywhere. You just have to build the LangGraph agent and register it to the component.
That's awesome. Thank you. And since we have some questions related to custom agents, we have a page in the documentation that shows how to build like tips and tricks for building your custom agents as well. So yeah, I think that's all of the questions about the AI component. Thank you so much, Meet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so next up, we will have Jose covering our amazing editing updates.
Thanks, Emily. So I am sharing my screen now. First of all, wanted to thank the shout out in the chat. That was a really nice comment. Appreciate it. So for today, I'm going to show off the new editing capabilities that we added to both Sketch and Editor. And I'm going to start off with the kind of the new re-architecture of our drawing system, which allowed us to, uh, once we start drawing with a line or polygon, we now have our Sketch toolbar update to show some new uh, segment-based tools. So we can switch between different segments while actively creating a line or polygon. And some of these new segment tools include the new curve tools that we support as well. So Bezier curve segment, arc segment, and the endpoint arc segment. So what this new capability allows us to do is for me to start drawing some straight lines and then switch to using the new curve tools. So here I'm going to use the circular arc. And one thing, I'm going to zoom in here. If you hit, we have some shortcut keys attached to some of the curve drawing capabilities. So if we hit the V shortcut key on our keyboard, we kind of pause our drawing, and now we have the ability to uh, increase or decrease the interior control point to adjust the radius of the circular arc. We can also modify the endpoint. This is the first time we're providing this like pause during the create workflow to adjust vertices. And then you just hit the V key again to continue drawing. Let me zoom back out. So now I can continue using the new curve tools, and then I can switch to a different one, which is the Bezier arc, which behaves a little bit differently. With the Bezier curve tool, we have access to some Bezier handles. So if I hit the V key again, I can modify the Bezier handle to adjust the curve the way we would like it for more accurate. On this, since we're using Sketch, I'm not really worried about accuracy, but it's just an example of how you can use the Bezier handles. So I'll kind of modify the curve a little bit more to our liking, and then yeah, and then we'll continue. So I can switch back to the straight line segment to complete this drawing. So this new approach allows us to switch between drawing segments, and with the re-architecture of our drawing API, we also are making it easier to create your own like tools that you would like to use in our sketch or editing workflows. So we're working on providing a public API in the near future, so it's easier to bring in any custom tools that users or organizations create and add them into Sketch or Editor. Another thing I wanted to show while we're here is if you enter the Edit Vertices mode, another workflow for curves, you might have a straight line. And then if you hit the Shift key on your keyboard, we can create a circular arc from the straight line segment. So you may already have geometries that you've already drawn that are straight line segments, but yeah, you can modify them to create curves. And so this is for Sketch natively out of the box. The line we're seeing is just a custom symbol just to emphasize the point. But yeah, this is the new curve tools and how to draw with them using Sketch. And then editing. So since editor also has the Sketch toolbar integrated, we also have access to the curve tools from the Sketch toolbar. So if I wanted to like, draw a parcel here, I'm going to use snapping to make it easier to snap along these lines. I will use the new circular arc tool to better draw this curved segment that represents this cul-de-sac. So I'll do it here too. So it's just a little bit more accurate with snapping. So let's give it a temporary parcel ID to create it, because I also want to show that some of our operators also support curves. So if I were to go back, select this parcel that I drew, I could use the split tool, which now supports splitting curves as well, to split it properly so we can have the two parcels and not just one big one. So this would be like parcel ID 21, and then we have a chance to go back and modify the second one as well. And I'll submit it, and now we have two parcels here. So our split tool in editor is also supportive of curves, and you can also split with curves as well. One of the capabilities that we're showing here is snapping, but and some of the editing capabilities. But I wanted to show that there are some limitations with the feature services side. So currently, for online hosted feature services, uh, they only support circular arcs, and so that means when you create a Bezier arc using the editor, which we will allow you to do, uh, the when you save that edit back to the server, it will be densified, and we will notify you. So I'll show the quick example. If I were to start drawing this line and use the Bezier tool, you will get a notification that this uh, geometry is going to be densified because the service doesn't support, in this case, the Bezier curve. Just so any limitations will be messaged to the user. For true curve snapping, what I showed today is released and available for ArcGIS Online hosted feature services. For enterprise by reference feature services, it will require a version 12.1 of enterprise, which will be releasing in the next couple months to support true curve snapping. That doesn't mean you can't snap to curves. You will just be snapping to a densified representation of the curve. But the benefit of enterprise feature services is that they do support circular, Bezier, and elliptical arcs. So they will not be densified whenever you create any new geometries with curves. And then finally, we also wanted to show a new feature for 5.0, and that's Z snapping support. So what Z snapping support means is if you have layers that are Z aware and you're adding, creating, or updating geometries, the Z value of the point or vertex you're snapping to will be preserved in the new feature that you're creating. So here we have an example of I'm creating a street light on a electric utility network. If you can see, kind of small, the Z value is 0 meters, so that's the default on the layer. But if I hover over some of these features that already have some of the Z value set, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, you'll notice that the Z changes here to 5 meters. And if I were to snap to this streetlight, it's 10 meters. And then the one on top has 15 meters. You can do the same thing for the polylines. So when you're creating polyline, the vertices will also take the new Z value. So the Z value is 0 also for the low voltage line. But if we snap to the street lamps, that's 5, 10 meters, and then this will be 15 meters. So each vertex will have a different Z value. And yeah, so we're really quite excited with the amounts of work we did on the editing side for supporting curves and snapping to curves, and also the Z support. So yeah, glad to be able to show that off. Thank you. I'm passing it back to you, Emily.
Thank you so much, Jose. Excellent presentation. We have some comments and questions from the audience. Thank you so much for all your questions. First, we have some kudos from Korg Ezel. I believe they're loving all our editing updates, and we also have some questions. First is from Jason. So, is the curve a bunch of vertices, or does it work differently?
So the curve, the way the coordinates are stored for curves is through these curve objects. So it's still represented as an array of coordinates, but there are like objects that you will see that either labeled as the A key, a B key, or C key, each telling the user which type of curve it is, whether it's elliptical, circular, arc, or Bezier. But it's not stored as a bunch of tiny vertices. So if I select like this, I'm going to select this geometry. So what we're actually going to be storing is the control point, the starting control point, the interior arc, and then the endpoint. So it's 3 values that we should be storing. So that gives us enough information to like load them and render them for editing.
Awesome, great. And the second question is it possible with a new release to snap to vector map layers when drawing polygons?
That one, I do not know the answer to that one, but we can work as a team to respond to you after the live stream, and yeah, to give you a better answer for that. So yeah, I wasn't sure.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jose. So if you have more questions related to editing or the previous presentation about AI, feel free to drop it in the chat. We will post our response in the chat or the comment. And yeah, thank you so much, Jose. And next up, we will have Anne sharing component updates.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So a few updates that I'd like to share in addition to the AI components package that Meet demonstrated earlier. We also have another new components package at this release. That's the common components. So these contain a collection of shared reusable UI components that aren't necessarily related to the map. And these are used in other of our components by our higher level components. But we also wanted to make them available to you. So this includes the slider, histogram, and ticks components. All of these have great demos in our component reference, showing how you can have a slider with multiple different values. You can use a slider in vertical layout. The slider also contains different slots, like a content start and a content end slot that allows you to place other content above or below the slider. We also have the histogram component, which provides you to the ability to create a histogram with different color stops or continuous color range, all sorts of different information here. So let's take a look at a few of these in action. Here is a map showing the population in Mexico, and we're using a histogram to show that population in a chart. So here we're adding our histogram, the histogram component here, adding ArcGIS histogram and setting the layout to horizontal. And then down below in our JavaScript code, we are going to fetch the statistics from the layer. So this is just using our smart mapping summary statistics. And then once we get the results of that, we'll go ahead and use them to populate our histogram. So here you can see that we are updating the minimum of our histogram with our min value from the histogram results, same with the max value. And then we'll also just take the bins from our histogram result and set them on the histogram. And we'll add the average, and that displays this line with the value as well. As I change the drop down here, that will update the normalization type. So we'll go ahead and get that smart mapping function for the statistics again and use that to update our histogram. You can also use the histogram with the slider component. And here's an example of that to create a scale range slider that updates the layer effects to visualize the average age in Phoenix in the different block groups. So how we're doing that here is we have the ArcGIS slider component that is added to the map, or added to are slotted in the bottom left corner here. And then we add the histogram here, and we'll slot that in the content start. So that's what makes that histogram display right above the slider, and so that we can easily interact with it. So that is the histogram and the slider. In the future, we'll also provide a histogram range slider that kind of combines these two elements for you so that you don't have to go through and set the min and max on both the histogram element and the slider. It will just handle all of that for you right away. One thing I wanted to point out with this new components package is that you don't have to add any extra code to have this available to you in your application. In the 5.0 release, we introduced a single script tag for CDN. So all you need to do to load the components, all of the component packages, the calcite components, and the core API is just reference this single script tag, and that brings in all of the resources that you need. Another enhancement, this time to the map components package that I wanted to demonstrate, is a new property called visual scale that's now available on all of our components that use like this kind of button interface. So this allows you to update the scale that the components are displayed at. As you can see, I can switch between small, medium, and large, and that will automatically scale the content within each of these buttons. And yeah, it just helps to provide you a little bit more control with how those buttons, these types of components look. And each of these has a visual scale, visual scale property, and you could just update that to small, medium, or large. Also, just wanted to point out that at this release, we have now deprecated all of our widgets, and we're really encouraging everyone to use the components going forward. We provide a lot of great resources to help with this transition, including a migration guide, updated programming patterns, tutorials, and now most of our samples are built with components. So lots of great resources for you there. This deprecation doesn't mean that the widgets will be immediately removed, but we are planning on beginning to remove the widgets starting at version 6, which is planned for Q1 of 2027. And we'll share the links for some of these migration guides and everything you need to know in the chat. Thank you so much. Back to you, Emily.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne. We don't currently have any questions from the audience, but if you have any questions related to components, please drop in the chat and we will answer them. And also, thank you everyone for answering the questions as a poll. That's very helpful for us to drive our development. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we will have David covering the amazing 3D updates.
Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to share what we've been working on the 3D side. I started my screen sharing. Should come through in a second. Yes, there we go. Yeah, so what's new in 3D? So the first and foremost, like the biggest, I think, addition is the introduction of emissive materials. So emissive materials are materials which are not affected by shading, but which are actually light sources themselves. So here we have this little demo scene, and here you see basically buildings which have been colored. This building here has been colored in an emissive material, and this is now a property of the 3D symbology. So in the material, you can now specify an emissive property, and there's a strength and a source. And this will basically tell the system that this is emitting light. And then there's associated with that a strength parameter, which drives the strength of that light emission. And then there's a source parameter, and that can be either color or emissive. And the idea here is that some geometry comes with some intrinsic emission value. Like, for example, if you have a 3D object which has an emissive texture, that is kind of an emission value coming with the geometry. But some geometries don't have that, like, for example, volumetric symbols. And so here, when you say source, you can specify if you want to have the emission being driven by the color of the symbol or by the color which comes with the 3D geometry. And yeah, that's basically what this allows you to do. And yeah, what's really cool about this feature is basically that it allows you to use like a physical based property, like an emission of light, to kind of first of all make the scene look more cool and more visually appealing, but at the same time to also kind of drive the attention of the user and basically tell a story with it. And this is basically what I'm doing here. So basically the most recent buildings are visualized using the emission color. And what we have on top of the emission is the glow effect. So here you now have in the environment, in the lighting section, you can now specify glow. And this brings the whole emission story to a new level. So I'm enabling this now here. And then you see this beautiful kind of glow effect where it really kind of now much more than before stands out. And this the glow effect has an intensity value, which kind of really allows you to kind of drive it to very kind of intense values. And I love this feature because everything that makes things look more like a cyberpunk or like anime movie, that's really close to my heart. So this is bringing basically like game engine type of visuals to the JavaScript 3D SDK, and yeah, allow you to really build more expressive visualizations and use it also to guide the user attention. So here is another example where you can really make some really beautiful 3D scenes. Here's some visualization of population data, and then you can just use the emission and top of that to really make it pop. So in addition, I talked about 3D objects bringing the emission with their own values, like using emissive textures, and this is what we did here. This is an example of the in the SDK, and what we have here is basically textures which basically have an emission value. So basically the 3D geometry you see here, the 3D buildings, at the GLB files, and those have an emission texture which kind of allows us to realize, okay, there's basically no shading, it's just coming as a light source. And in together with glow, you can really kind of make some very beautiful and visually appealing scenes. And also there's a separate object here, which is this theater sign, and that has also an emission texture. And here we updated the material with the emission strength, and starting with 0, and then if we turn it to 1 or above 1 to really drive it to a higher intensity value, then you get basically more emission. And yeah, you can also like do your animations on top of that. And here another example where we have basically some public transport lines, and then those have an emission color. And yeah, that's another example for driving the visualization in a way you want. So that has been basically the emission. And now I want to talk about the next big addition to the 3D SDK, which is the Gaussian splat layer. Gaussian splats are kind of modern kind of rendering techniques next to triangles. And you can think of it, I like to think of it as like point clouds plus plus. So here we have an example scene, which is Boston. And here, the way Gaussian splats work is that instead of 3D geometry, like polygons, we use, with Gaussian splats, we use points and special points, not simple points which are just like 3D circles, but which are kind of ellipsoids. And if you look at if you zoom in, you can actually see these ellipsoids. And this is a good way to understand how this works. So these are basically like all the different points. And if I get closer and closer, I see these are kind of ellipsoids, which allow us to kind of represent very fine details efficiently. Like you see these poles, and this is just like one ellipsoid, or a few just, and these kind of tiny details are much harder to capture with more standard photogrammetry, like based on polygons. That's why Gaussian splats have gained a lot of attention recently and are really like a big thing. And we kind of added a Gaussian splat layer, which allows you to add your own Gaussian splat data sets to 3D scenes. And yeah, and I could really just spend like hours browsing through the data set and watching at all the details. And this is kind of in combination with the ArcGIS reality mapping software, where you can basically have your drone image, and then you can generate Gaussian splat layers out of that and bring it into the SDK. I'm gonna just pick another scene just to show the amazing level of detail you get with these data sets. And here's like an industrial complex, and we have this progressive loading. So as the data comes in, you will see that it refines more and more. And then you really see that it really captures very well the details of the whole construction site. And yeah, that's just beautiful. And what's also really cool, when we add a new layer, then we have to take care that it kind of integrates well with the whole API. So for example, measurement tools work seamlessly with the Gaussian splat layer. So here I have the distance tool, and then I can use it basically to place my measurement points, and then I can basically do measurements on the Gaussian splat layer, which is not as simple because we have these points, it's not polygons. But yeah, that's basically what we do. And it also works with things like focus areas and all these other layer-based effects and techniques you can apply in the API. And yeah, that's for the Gaussian splat layer. So let's move on. Another thing is Google photorealistic 3D base maps. That's also something I'm really excited about. So Google has the 3D map, which is kind of a really data set where you have basically a 3D base map of the whole world. And that is a very, very cool and powerful data set. And Google kind of exposes or offers access to the data for third parties. And we integrated the Google photorealistic 3D base map into our platform. So if you are logged in, you can access this as a base map. So here's a base map gallery, and if you scroll down, you see the photorealistic and the photorealistic hybrid. And photorealistic, these are kind of the Google Maps dataset. The difference is hybrid is with labels, and without labels is just photorealistic, similar to the image layers. And then you can really go and enjoy the amazing data set. So I'm now zooming in to Zurich, where I'm located right now. And you can see that basically it loads the 3D data as we kind of zoom in. This is kind of similar to the integrated layer. And what's also special here is that this is kind of replacing the terrain. And this is why it's also took us a bit to get it integrated well into the API. And I'm now gonna zoom in further, and kind of this is actually the office where I'm sitting right now. So I'm sitting in the 5th floor in Zurich. And yeah, that's the data set. And I'm also zooming in a bit to show basically, because it's a nice example showing the difference to the Gaussian splats, because this is kind of really state-of-the-art photogrammetry for polygons. And you can see that the Gaussian splat layer is really also very much different, and it kind of is a good side-by-side comparison between the two techniques. That's why I present this back to back. But still, the Google 3D tiles are like a really, really cool data set because it's across the whole world. So that's a powerful base map which has been added to the platform. And that brings us to the next point, 3D components and analysis. So we now introduced a volume measurement component. So in the previous release, we introduced the volume measurement analysis, which is this analysis object where you can do volume analysis. And now we have a component, which, as you see here in the code, you can really simply use to bring in this component into the UI, and then you can do your measurement, your volume measurements like that. And yeah, as you know it from the analysis, so this is kind of the cut and fill, where you basically specify the plane, and then you get to see basically the volume which has to be cut or which has to be filled. And this is kind of analysis which are used in some industries. You can also switch to a stockpile volume mode where we really we don't have this level. This level is defined by the terrain. And yeah, there's kind of different use cases which we cover with that. And yeah, so volume analysis has been around, but now we also have a component with that. And yeah, that kind of expands our analysis components on the 3D side. And also, we now introduce the shadowcast analysis. So that replaces the shadowcast view model. So the shadowcast analysis is another addition to our analysis framework, where you have these analysis objects which you create, and then you specify some parameters according to the documentation. You add it to the view. You have this analysis object, you add it to the view, and then you can query the view and basically use the analysis view to query the results of the analysis. So here for the shadowcast, you basically you create the analysis object, you add it to the view, and then you basically ask the view for the analysis view. That's the view model pattern. And then you basically take the screen point, and then you can ask the view to get the result of the shadowcast analysis at this position. And here you see that we have this custom UI. This is coming from our sample, where you can build custom widgets on top of the analysis. So that's kind of the core idea, that we have these analysis objects which allow our users to really build custom experiences around those analyses. But then we have also our own components which use the very same analysis to give you some standard UI which we came up with. So that's kind of really neat. And before the view models were really designed just for our UI. So that's why it was very limiting to work with these view models from a developer's perspective. And now we really make the analysis objects kind of first-class citizens in the 3D API. And then the components are adding basically things on top to make it easier to bring in our pre-built UI, so to say, for the analysis. But you can also not use the components and go with your own UI experience. And similarly, the elevation profile analysis has been in beta since last release, and it's now out of beta. So similar story here, that we have this elevation profile analysis which replaced the elevation profile view model. So that is for the components. And finally, I'm about to wrap up. We have some visual quality improvements. And here we improved the occlusion handling for labels. So labels now, the icon symbol 3D layer and the text symbol 3D layer, they now have an additional property, which is called occluded visibility. And this allows our users to kind of steer how labels behave in the scene. So on the left, you see the visibility mode called adaptive. And this is meaning that if the label is basically being covered by some geometry in the front, you will see it transparent. You will see it in a transparent way. And this is improving the readability a lot. So you can here see, you really get, the label becomes transparent, and you can still very easily read the depth, because there's this transparency going on. And you can also control that it becomes basically hidden as soon as it is covered with some geometry in the on top of it, or you can say it is fully visible and it will never be hidden. So this is adding more control to our users. And what is done here also, like this is coming out of some work where we combined, where we improved our transparency rendering, and this also extends to terrain. So here we have also like the transparent ground rendering. We improved that. It uses now our order independent transparency technique, and this together with the labels, is a much better visual experience where we now improve the readability of things which are underground, for example, and the labels. That's also basically being extended to the terrain rendering side. And with that, I just want to do a shout out to the Web3D team. A lot of people worked on all these different features, and I think there's really cool stuff in here, and I'm really proud to be able to present it to everybody. But yeah, there's a big team behind it. I just want to say, shout out to the team and to all the amazing work which was done here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Yeah, that's great. So we have one question related to the Google 3D photorealistic tiles. It's about when it will be available. So currently, the Google photorealistic base map is only available for apps hosted on ArcGIS Online, and we are actively working on making it available for custom applications. And we also have some questions about 5.0 in general. So first, we have this question from Jason. We're on Enterprise 11.5, but we also have an AGOL portal. Is 5x live on AGOL today? Yes, it is. And also, another question, will Esri's JavaScript 5.0 be available in the app or only in the ArcGIS Maps and Pro? It would be great if you can clarify this question a little bit more. So currently, so for apps in ArcGIS Online, they're running on top of, they're building on top of 5.0. And you can also directly use JavaScript 5.0 for your custom applications as well. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for your great presentations, stunning 3D updates as always. And it's always lovely to see all of the great label updates. These means a lot for our developers and users.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you so much. And so next up, we will have Heather sharing updates in Table and our new selection manager.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share. Let me know. Hopefully everything should be showing up. See everything okay? Hopefully. Okay, good. All right. So I just wanted to touch upon quickly some of the enhancements that we made to the feature table with this last release. Probably the biggest one is the fact that we now automatically support contingent attribute value constraints without any additional configurations needed by the developer on your end. So prior to this release, if you had data that had contingent attribute values stored within it, and you went to try to edit the data within the feature table, it would look something like this. So basically you would see every single value for whatever you had specified within your fields, your contingent fields. So in this case, it may not really help because I'm not sure if holly oak is in the same tree genus, or I'm not even going to try to pronounce these, the same tree species. Nothing's telling me if this is correct or not. So this was a big request, and we now have the same functionality. So if you've worked with the editor or feature form, we have that support for contingent values. We took that similar functionality that you would have seen if you worked with it within the feature form, and we now have that within the feature table. So if you double click on this, you'll now notice it's going to tell you based upon what you see here, so what my values are, what the recommended value is per, what I have for my tree genus and my species. So if I went in here, let's say, and decided to do some updates, it's going to automatically stop. So one of the first things you'll notice here is that we have disabled the default behavior of automatically saving out your edits when you double click and you make an edit within the table. So you'll notice here now it's indicating to us that we cannot make this edit because we have an invalid selection, a combination. I can go in here. I know it happens to be this particular value. So now I went ahead, made these updates. It does allow me to go in here and save these out. I can save it, or I can just reset it back to the old one. So this didn't require anything out of the box. It's just automatically is recognized by the feature table. It sees if it has contingent values. If it does, it will disable that automatic saving and prompt you then and give you the dialogue or the display that you saw. So none of what we used to see here. So that automatic disabling of the saving. So what I showed you, how the contingent value editing automatically does that by default. You may choose to have that as well in your data, but without working with contingent values. We added a property on the feature table that allows you to do that. In this particular application, I have added the autosave disabled to true within my feature table. And what that does is if I go in here and change this out, you'll notice here I now get that same footer with the buttons that ask me whether or not I want to save or reset. So just a little additional option for you as the developer. If you want to bypass the automatic saving, you can do that. So secondly, feature tables. Okay, yeah. So those were the two big ones. I also wanted to touch on, and I'm not going to show it here in an app, but we also improved the attachment view and experience as well. We have this written up here within the release notes, but mainly what you will notice is that probably the big one is that if you want to, for example, like if you're working with images, if you want to open up that image, you don't have to go and click on it, open it up into a brand new browser tab. It's automatically, everything is embedded there directly within the table. It just makes it a lot more seamless. So second part I want to touch upon is our, we have a new beta selection manager out now. This was a big request that we've had from people for quite a while. And what this selection manager basically does is it allows you to work with the selections that you have within the view of your map view or your scene view. It allows you to work with the selections across the layers and the tables. So in this particular case, I'm going to make some selections within the editor. Those same selections are going to automatically show within the feature table. This was not possible prior to 5.0. You could do it, you just had to wire it up. It required a little bit more work. We've provided a couple properties within the editor and within the feature table. I'll show you that as well. This is the application I'm going to show you. The sync view selection. So if you set sync view selection to true on the table, in this case, I have it set to true on the table and within the editor, you'll notice is if I go in here, do a selection, automatically the features that show up in my selection list here within the editor, you'll notice here as I'm hovering, they highlight, these are the same features now that are going to be displayed within the feature table. So that happens just by setting that property, the sync view selection, to true on both the editor and the feature table. You'll also notice here again the highlighting, and then notice here, let's say if I go in here and I remove, so I know that that's got that one. If I remove one, it's going to automatically remove the selection as well. So it syncs up automatically. If I add it, it's going to add it back in. All right, so that's a big one. Again, it's in beta. We have it written up a bit here as well within the release notes. We will be improving upon it as ongoing releases or as releases continue. But yeah, read through this and let us know any feedback. And yeah, we appreciate it. So I think that's it for me. I am going to pass it on back to Emily, please.
Thank you, Heather. Great presentation. Yeah, it's so good to see like all our like the the fields in the tables can be synced up, and also selection manager that would largely help improve the developer experience as well. We have some questions in the chat. The first question is related to AI component actually. Is the AI component just in the SDK right now? Or will it be widgets that our no-code users can just add it to an experience with dashboard? Yes, the AI components are just in the SDK for now, but we are looking into to have the AI components inside our no-code offerings in the future. Hope that answers your question. And also, there's another question about enterprise. So enterprise 12.1 will ship with the version 5.0 of the JavaScript Maps SDK. So yeah, and we have some great shout out. We have a shout out from Nasiri about the selection manager. So that's always great to hear. Thank you so much. And we will also share the page for the selection manager release note in the chat as well. So thank you. Thank you, Heather. Okay. So the last part, I'll share some additional updates in the JavaScript SDK. So first of all, if you ever wonder why are we starting at 5.0 during this release, wasn't the last release 4.34? It is because we moved to semantic versioning. So what it does is we will start fresh at 5.0. Kyle said also starting at 5.0. And the versioning format will be major, minor, and patch. So major releases include breaking changes or deprecations. It needs upgrading may require code changes. And then we will have, and for minor releases, these are backward compatible features, additions, or deprecations. So you will be able to safely upgrade without code changes. And we'll also have patches. So there's a bunch of reasons why we moved to semantic versioning, and it can help you for better planning the future. There's also helps. It also there's instance risk signaling as well. So we hope that can help you better plan your own product releases, your own product projects with our releases. So for the release schedules, we're still planning on 3 releases a year. So the first release of the year, the one in February, for this year, it is 5.0 that we have already released in February. That will be a major release. And then for this year in June and October, there will be minor versions. So it will be 5.1 and 5.2. And in February 2027, we'll have the next major release, which it will be 6.0. So yeah. So in 2027, it will be 6.0, and 2028, it will be 7.0. Just year -1. That's the goal we're having. And if you want to learn more about our release plans, please read this blog for our please read this blog about semantic versioning. And then also for the JavaScript SDK, oops, am I sharing it right? Give me one. I'm sharing the screen again. Sorry for the hiccup. Besides the semantic versioning, we also made a lot of improvement for our documentation sites and also some programming updates for you. First, we improved the sample searching experience. Everything is flattened. So if you have a quick name you want to search, say analysis, and all of the samples related to analysis will pop up. And also, if you click on the sample themselves, if we improve the sandbox experience so that you can read the description while looking at the code and playing with the app in the preview all at the same time. If you prefer the previous sandbox experience, we also have this button in the upper right. You can switch the views. In this way, we can have the code and the app side by side. Another one is the full window for the preview. You can have just play with the application just right in the sample window. Another great thing we like to share is we added ArcGIS/Create. This is a CLI tool to help you start building applications like really fast. So what it does, if you are building an application using npm, you can run npm init ArcGIS or npx ArcGIS/Create. Just with that, you can specify which template you want to use. Currently, we have React, Angular, Vue, Webpack, CDN, Node. Just with that, you can spin up a template application within seconds. So it will really fast. It will really make your it will really help you start building the application faster. And we have this great blog from Omar talking about detailing how to use it. So basically what it does, you just in your console, you put in the information, put in the name of your project, select which template you want to use, and then you can go to the application, and it will run with an app and with a map and all of the related packages. This link will be in the chat as well. Another thing we like to share is the mapping application layouts. So we know we are you are started building like very complex applications with lots of layouts and calcite design system. So we added this new guide to help you build applications with a better layout. We have some tips and tricks here, some theming and responsiveness tips. And also we have this layout sample applications. These are in our JS API resources. So we have these 3 applications. A preview is in here. So we have these 3 applications for you. You can download them from JS API-resources to so that you can start your application with existing template, and you can just swap it up with your own content, so you don't have to worry too much about building an application. So we have 3 templates right now. One is a Finder. We have a dashboard as well, and the interactive filtering layout. Besides the application layouts, we also see some questions related to building custom widgets for Experience Builder, and how does the map component migration affect that? So we have these 2 great blogs about building future-proof custom widgets for Experience Builder. So generally, what we recommend is when you build custom widgets that uses the SDK, you should use the components instead of widgets. So in this way, you can build future-proof widgets for your Experience Builder applications. And also, there's another blog about optimizing the custom widgets custom widget development with GMU, calcite, and map components. So we have shared these resources in the chat. Please take a look if you like. So yeah, that's all from me. Let's see if we have any questions. So we have a question. Where can I find SDK documentations for previous versions where it's just available via download? So that is a great question. So we are actively working on it, and it will be available for you soon. The first version that will be available for everyone, that will be the last one for 34. And we're planning to add them back live. But right now, if you want to view the previous versions of the documentation, you can go to our download page and download the documentations. And yeah, well, thank you so much. If there's any questions, please let us know. And thank you so much for joining this live stream. It's a little bit longer. I hope we have it packed with amazing demonstrations and we answered your questions well. So if you have any additional questions, please drop it in the chat and also engage with us in Azure community at conferences. And this live stream will be recorded. It will be posted on YouTube after we finish the live stream. So we have the record in there. Yeah. So have a good one, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.